Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, as we come on the air, the new tornadoes touching down as the heat turns deadly again. This new twister tearing across the heartland. The summer storm striking from the Midwest to the Gulf Coast. The field of debris across Florida. The doorbell cam capturing homes being pulverized. You'll hear from a woman as she races to get out alive. Plus, 76 million people under heat alerts. And the warning tonight as a postal worker passes out and later dies. Inside the B-2 bombing, the Pentagon saying 15 years in the making. The mountain studied at what the pilot saw after the bomb hit its target. Brad Pitt's break-in. LAPD searching for 3 suspects after the star's home was ransacked as he promotes his new film. How police say the crooks got in. Closing arguments in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking case when the jury could start deliberating. The cost of denial. Our team needing respirators to enter one family's home damaged by the LA fires. They say their insurance company keeps stalling by changing adjusters. What happened after we started asking questions? Moment of impact, the semi careening into a worker in a bucket truck. That man left dangling but surviving. Nightly News starts right now. This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
Let's bring in our friend, Fox News Chief Political Analyst Britt Hume. So good to see you. In all your years of covering Washington, D.C., the Pentagon is one that does briefings quite regularly, but this was a little unusual. Wanted to get your take on how you thought they did this morning.
Well, I was very impressed, especially with General Kane, his description of how as Jennifer has just outlined, of how the targeters in the Pentagon, going back, 15 years, had planned for this moment. The B-2 had been built for this moment, and the bunker buster bombs had been too for this very moment. And I think it's fair to say that the problem with that early report that leaked out of the Defense Intelligence Agency was that it wasn't really plausible that ordnance of this capacity that had been tested to the extent it could be by the U.S. military, and that, so far as we could tell, struck the target precisely, would have done only limited damage. It was obviously a preliminary report, and as Jennifer pointed out in her reporting when it first came out, it was low confidence, and it seems to have deserved low confidence based on all that we've heard since. Obviously, final reports are yet to be heard, but it was an impressive briefing, especially by General Kane. I'd like to say a word, if I may, Dana, about Jennifer Griffin, who was attacked by the Defense Secretary today, an attack she certainly, in my view, did not deserve. Her professionalism, her knowledge, and her experience at the Pentagon is unmatched, and I have had and still have the greatest regard for her. The attack on her was unfair.
One thing I was going to mention about that, Bill, Britt, is that the DIA is kind of like on the first level of intel. It gets higher up as you go to the CIA and DNI. And it reminded me of the 2004 exit polls, right? These first reports can often be wrong, and that's what they were trying to correct today. Bill.
No, Britt, I was just going to ask you.
Well, it was a typical...
Go ahead, Britt.
Go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
No, please go.
No, I was just going to say that it is typical of the media in our age that any negative report that you can get your hands on in the aftermath of the United States military action is going to be highlighted, played up, and so on, despite the fact that it was early, based on very little and low confidence. And it's disappointing that happens. It continues to happen, but it does.
Yeah, Brett, you can tell the administration is just really irritated about those initial leaks and how they were portrayed in the leaks to the media. The president last night, when he was announcing this press conference, teased it as offering irrefutable proof that these strikes were a success. Do you think they achieved that with this press conference this morning?
Well, I think they probably helped, particularly General Kane's comments. And look, there's now a body of response that we've seen to this initial report, and we're hearing it from all kinds of quarters, as has been outlined by Jennifer and others, to the effect that the likelihood that this was a very great success is the real deal. So obviously we await final reports. First reports are inevitably unreliable and should be so treated. But I think they made some strides today toward straightening out what.
Tonight in New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., this severe thunderstorm watch as we come on right now. The storm's moving in as the heat moves out. Lee Goldberg is here. Also breaking, the robbery at Brad Pitt's home, smashing their way in. And tonight, the images right here, the mysterious fireball seen in the sky over several states. Multiple calls to 911, and you'll see it. First tonight, the severe storms and the tornado watch tonight. Multiple tornadoes already. One home lifted up off the ground, a 76-year-old woman inside. She survived this. Nearby homes destroyed. And in the Northeast, this severe thunderstorm watch, Lee Goldberg has the full forecast. Just in tonight, the break-in at the LA home of actor Brad Pitt, scaling a wall, smashing their way in. What was done inside? Our reporter at the scene for us. Tonight, the images, that mystery fireball over multiple states. Drivers startled by a bright light streaking across the sky. Some reported shaking and hearing a boom. Was it a meteor? Was it space junk? A piece of it came crashing through someone's roof, cracking the floor inside their home. Tonight, Iran's supreme leader saying the White House exaggerated the damage done at Iran's nuclear sites. Tonight, the Pentagon with new findings here and revealing they've been studying this plan of a possible strike on Iran for 15 years, saying that 30,000-pound bombs exploded exactly as planned. And President Trump tonight insisting Iran did not remove its enriched uranium, even though early intelligence indicated much of it might have been moved. Back in the U.S. tonight in New York City, the prosecution's closing argument against Sean Diddy Combs, calling it a climate of fear. What else they said in that courtroom today, and what the defense now plans to tell the jurors. The jurors in this case could get it tomorrow. Tonight, terrifying moment, a worker in a lift in a bucket truck when an 18-wheeler smashes into the truck. The worker dangling in his harness. The end of an era at Vogue magazine tonight. Longtime editor-in-chief Anna Wintour reveals she is stepping down. America Strong tonight, the Congressional Gold Medal awarded to the Army Rangers from World War II. The moving scene right here. And tonight, just in here, the loss of a famous film composer. From Mission Impossible to Cool Hand Luke to Dirty Harry. A profound impact. You'll hear his music. This was an historically successful attack.
The Pentagon shared this test video showing how 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs like this one were used to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Inside Iran, a government spokeswoman tells us the regime is not giving up its ambitions.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Maurice Dubois. John is off tonight. CBS News has learned that the Trump administration is considering several options to entice Iran back to negotiations over its nuclear program. We are told this includes helping Iran access billions of dollars to build a non-weaponized nuclear energy program. Top Pentagon officials held a news conference today to emphasize how effective they believe last weekend's U.S. strikes were, and they used test video of that bunker buster bomb to show the potential destruction to Iran's nuclear facilities. We have new reporting from Imtiaz Tayeb inside Iran, and we begin with Charlie Daggett at the Pentagon tonight. Charlie?
Hey, Maurice, the question tonight is what remains of Iran's nuclear capabilities after those bombing raids? And honestly, we are no closer to having an answer. In a contentious briefing here.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump and senior administration officials are pushing back on a leaked U.S. intelligence report that suggests the U.S. strikes on Iran only set back Iran's nuclear program by a few months. On Wednesday, CIA Director John Ratcliffe and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard both insisted the strike severely damaged Iran's nuclear program. In response to the leak, the White House has announced plans to limit sharing classified information with Congress. Earlier today, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, issued a new video statement claiming victory over Israel and the U.S. while vowing Iran will never surrender.
First, I would like to congratulate them for victory over the fake regime of the Zionist regime. With all those claims that the Zionist regime were making, they almost were crushed under the blows of the Islamic government.
They were Khamenei's first public comments in over a week. Meanwhile, Iran's parliament has unanimously agreed to suspend all cooperation with the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, following the U.S. and Israeli attacks that killed at least 950 Iranians, according to one count. This is the Speaker of the Iranian parliament.
Despite the recent attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities, the International Atomic Energy Agency has not condemned them, not even superficially. It has undermined the agency's international credibility, and for this reason, the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran is suspending its cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency until the security of its nuclear facilities is guaranteed, and Iran's peaceful nuclear program will proceed at a faster pace.
In other developments on Iran, Iranian state media reports authorities have arrested more than 700 people accused of having ties with Israel. At least 3 people were executed on Wednesday for allegedly collaborating with Israel. Officials in Gaza say Israeli forces have killed another 90 Palestinians over the last 24 hours, including dozens waiting near new food distribution centers. Israeli forces have killed over 550 people trying.
Good evening, I'm Amna Navaz.
And I'm Jeff Bennett. On the NewsHour tonight, amid differing intelligence assessments, President Trump doubles down on his claim that U.S. strikes completely destroyed Iran's nuclear program.
The U.S. Supreme Court rules that states can cut off Medicaid funding from Planned Parenthood, even if it's not being used for abortions.
And in her first interview since being freed, we speak with the American who was imprisoned in Russia for donating $51 to Ukraine.
All of your world all of a sudden just flip upside down, and you don't have anything that you used to anymore. You don't have your loved ones, you don't have your freedom.
On this Thursday night, the White House insists American bombs destroyed Iran's nuclear capability. The world is a much safer place. What the defense secretary would not reveal, what Iran's supreme leader is claiming, and the fears of what Iran is still capable of. A renewed push for a ceasefire deal to end the war in Gaza, what's being worked on, and when it could happen. Paving the way, the legislation allowing big infrastructure projects in Canada to get built faster becomes law. Plus, Denis Villeneuve,
You Canadian?
a Canadian director's dream to have a license to thrill, comes true. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The Trump administration continues to make the case that Iran's nuclear capability has been obliterated. During a news conference today, the American Defense Secretary was combative when asked about a preliminary U.S. intelligence assessment that suggested the impact of last week's American bombing of Iranian nuclear sites may have been limited. The White House press secretary says that's flat out wrong. When we look at
Battle of Harvard on France 24.
Hello and welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on Daybreak. Our headlines this Friday. EU leaders agreed to extend their sanctions on Russia as they wrap up a summit in Brussels in the company of Volodymyr Zelensky. They also discussed proposals for a trade deal with the United States. The clock ticks toward a deadline on July 9th. We'll get all the latest from Brussels with our correspondent, Dave Keating. Competing narratives over the state of Iran's new program. Strikes obliterating new capacities. The country's supreme leader accused the U.S. of exaggerating and approves the first $30 million direct fund for the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Gaza's health ministry says that well over 500 people have been killed near its aid centers since operations. And we begin in Brussels, where European leaders wrapped up a summit.
Very good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on today's show. Keir Starmer gives in to Labour rebels, offering watered-down cuts to welfare.
Plus, Manchester City beat Juventus 5-2 to secure top spot in their group at the Club World Cup.
Plenty of sport and news to come on Friday, the 27th of June. The Prime Minister offers to protect the benefits of hundreds of thousands of disabled people, to win over rebel Labour MPs and avoid a Commons defeat.
This is a good deal. It's a big change since last week. Massive changes to ensure that the most vulnerable people are protected.
Police officers investigating the Horizon Post Office scandal identify 7 suspects and 45 persons of interest. Officials in Gaza say nearly 550 Palestinians have been killed trying to access aid in the last month. Sky News reveals less than 1.5% of traffic lights have red light cameras, with police relying on dash cam footage to catch dangerous drivers.
And FA Cup winners Crystal Palace are expected to find out today if they're allowed to play in next season's Europa League. Their place has been in doubt because of UEFA's multi-club ownership rules.
Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on
This Monday, ABC and ABC iView. Today, a 15-year-old teenager charged over the murder of a prominent Brisbane businessman. 3 men convicted over the murder of Indigenous teenager Cassius Turvey being sentenced in WA. The Trump administration attacks journalists while insisting it destroyed Tehran's nuclear facilities. Iran has also denied claims it's agreed to fresh talks with Washington. And fashion icon Anna Wintour steps down as the editor of US Vogue after nearly 4 decades in the role. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Rosa Childs. The co-founder of an Australian fashion retailer has been identified as the man allegedly murdered by a teenager in Brisbane's north. The 15-year-old has been charged over the death. Reporter Molly Slattery has the details from Brisbane.
Is that a 15-year-old boy child?
Hello, it is noon in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 a.m. in New Delhi, 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Yasmin Yonkers at this hour. Donald Trump says a trade deal has been struck with China, but no specifics and no reaction yet from Beijing. Still, U.S. officials say there's been a commitment from China to deliver rare earths. India rejects joint communique terms at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defense Ministers meeting, the sticking point being lack of consensus over terrorism concerns. And Iran rules out nuclear talks with the US, denying any agreement to return to the table. Tehran's also accusing Washington of exaggerating the impact of recent strikes. US officials say damage was significant.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has called for a quick and simple trade deal with the US that is leaders. EU faces a July 9th deadline to come to an agreement with the White House or potentially face 50% tariffs. European Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen said all options were on the table to negotiate a deal. Iran's supreme leader says his regime delivered a hard slap to the US and crushed Israel. In his first public statement since the ceasefire with Israel, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei also said the US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities did not achieve much. The White House says the comments by Iran's leader are designed to save face. 29 high school students have been killed in a stampede in the Central African Republic. The students were taking exams when a power transformer beside the school exploded, sparking panic. More than 250 people were injured. This is DW News from Berlin. There's more news on our website, dw.com.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
From 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we've been, where we are going, and where we are, with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say. Because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel. The Prime Minister in Rebel. Sir Keir Starmer has agreed that existing disability claimants can keep their benefits in watered-down welfare reforms. So, is this another sign of a weak Labour government buckling under pressure? A major development in the battle to stop illegal channel crossings. Sir Keir Starmer pushes for a controversial one-in, one-out migrant deal with France. Blackout Britain. The country could face 2-week power outages as a result of the country's drive towards net zero. Donald Trump says the Iranian nuclear sites were obliterated in strikes, but has been accused of Murphy of deliberately misleading the public. Don't think I can take the pain. Just stay and we'll be joined by East Member T. Caldwell to tell us about his new music and recent baptism. New data reveals the equivalent of one child in every classroom is born via IVF, but less through the NHS. We're asking, should the health service pay for it at all?
And sport this morning, Manchester City, they looked a lot like, I can say it, looked a lot more like them old selves. And on 5 against Juventus in the Club World Cup. Wimbledon starts on Monday. There are more Brits in the singles than there has been for 41 years. And with all the best help possible from super shoes to male pacemakers, Faith Kipyegon failed in her attempt to be the first woman to break the 4-minute mile. Temperatures rise, humidity in buildings, sunshine for some, but wet for others. Big contrasts with the weather today and into the weekend. You'll want to join me later for a full forecast.
Good morning to you. Just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Ellie Costello and this is GB News Breakfast.
Syrian conflict in the North Somalis. The region is home to one of Africa's longest running conflicts. The equivalent to Shasha village after M23 rebels seized the provincial capital, Goma. We didn't want to go back. It was M23 who just took this weekend. The government they arrived, they asked us to go home because the war was over. They said they be considered enemies. We thought it best to go back home after hearing that. Before, we lived a good life because we lived without the war. But everything we owned was over. Today we live on aid, and without it, we can't live. That aid has been hit by a freeze on US funding. Other agencies are working to make up the shortfall, but the needs are enormous, with many returning to home that have been looted or destroyed.
Burundi is the United Nations to officially recognize the mass killings of Hutus in 1972 to 1973 as a genocide over 5 decades after the violence claimed tens of thousands of lives. This genocide deserves to be recognized at the international level. It deserves because 50 years more is too long. We affirm that the facts established by the Commission, the testimonies gathered and the archives already collected are sufficient. Today, Burundi wishes for this matter to be brought before the United Nations Security Council. The 1972 killings, often overshadowed by other regional crises, remain a sensitive and unresolved chapter in Burundi's history. The Truth and Reconciliation Council has been investigating this event for years, exhuming mass graves and compiling evidence of targeted violence against the Hutu population.
As this year's Summer Davos Forum wraps up in Tianjin, attendees of 3 days appear to be on one thing: the return of unilateralism is bad for business. China's premier called on the leader to safeguard free trade and keep politics out of the marketplace. New era requires entrepreneurs to play bigger roles, assume greater responsibility. Together thought and business leaders around the world to discuss and debate some of the most pressing global challenges.
For the first time in months, residents of Gaza City are receiving flour in an organized manner, sparking relief and cautious optimism among thousands who have endured hunger, looting, and violence during chaotic aid deliveries. This rare delivery comes after months of aid and distribution marked by stampedes and death. We were very happy to receive this, as we had waited for months without having flour or eating much, and my children would always cry. Thank God that the truck are secured and we can receive orderly, better than what used to happen with the looting. Now Gaza's powerful clans say they are stepping in to secure fair and secure distribution, though it's unclear how much coordination has taken place with Israeli or UN officials. Residents say the new approach is working better. That was
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Have a good life. Bye-bye.